You are comfortably zoned with the Zigzag Man in Alameda, California, pushing on the doors of life marked pull and fighting the unholy trinity as we go. Big business, organized religion, and government. I am back, and you are comfortably zoned with me, the Zigzag Man in Alameda, California, where the weather is always nice. Even on a cloudy day when it rained a little this morning, it still got up in the 60s, and life is good in Northern California. I'm down by the lagoon. I won't say the lagoon anymore. The lagoon, and I'm at the 420 studio, and my guest is the foremost fan of Gil Hodges getting into the Hall of Fame of any human being on the face of the earth. I'm nominating Bill Hall from Oregon. Bill Hall, are you with me?
I'm with you, Zig.
How are you? Welcome to the airways, and this has been a tough week for you because you have been an advocate all over Facebook, different groups, talking to people, discussing the merits of Gil Hodges getting into the Hall of Fame. I heard your name months ago when I did a show with Tony D'Angelo and Scott Russell about the very topic of Gil Hodges becoming a Hall of Famer. And this is the day they voted on, the Veterans Committee voted on his getting in. And tell me what's going through your mind.
My mind is racing right now, as I think any member of the tribe of Gil Hodges fans must be, because now his fate has been decided, but we don't know. We won't know until the announcement comes out officially from the Hall of Fame on Monday at 2 p.m. Eastern is my understanding when it's going to be, 11 o'clock out here on the West Coast. And, yeah, it's been quite a saga. And
may I ask you this? Are Chads involved in any way? Because I remember taking a real strong interest in an election a long time ago, and there were these Chads in Florida, and that's what determined it. That's not likely to happen this time, right?
No, it's a different process now. Back then in the 90s, Ted Williams was chairman of the Veterans Committee, and he ran it with an iron hand. They met at his house, and every diehard Gil Hodges fan knows the story.
No, I know that this is on the up and up, and I just wanted to clarify it. It isn't like the election that was decided in Florida with the Supreme Court thing. That was a different kind of election. That you wouldn't expect that to be up on the up and up these days. But this is baseball, so it's serious. And go on with your story, Bill.
Yeah, back in 1993, when Ted was running the Veterans Committee, it met at his home. Now they hold the Veterans Committee meetings at the baseball winter meetings in Florida, so to the south of us in San Diego, and it's all done by a much more structured process. But back then, it was Ted's committee. Ted was in charge, and Roy Campanella was a member of the committee. Roy, like Gil, one of the boys of summer. Roy, of course, as everyone knows, was paralyzed following his auto accident, which prematurely ended his Hall of Fame career. Roy was hospitalized at the time of the vote in 1993, could not make it to Ted's house. He asked if he could vote have his vote recorded by telephone, and Ted said no. And as a result of that refusal, Gil Hodges fell short of being enshrined in the Hall of Fame by that one vote.
Wow, and I think Scott and Tony and I discussed the reason thereof. They both managed the Washington Senators, and Gil succeeded Ted as the manager.
Preceded him, actually.
Oh, preceded him, yes. And there was some bitterness there.
Yeah, Ted was in charge of the Senators from 63 to 67. Jim Lemon managed them in 68, and then Ted took over in 69. And frankly, Gil was much more popular in Washington as a manager than Ted was. And, Ted was certainly one of the greatest players who ever lived. He was a war hero, but anybody who knows his life story also knows that he was a very vain and jealous man, and people say that he resented the fact that Gil had been more popular in Washington than he was.
Yeah, well, he was like John Wayne of his day, just one of those mythical characters that lived it out, but then you come to find out about how they really lived their lives and what they went through, and he was clearly bipolar. A very talented, incredibly talented human being on many different levels, but suffered as a lot of folks suffered before there was medication that made them all go to sleep. I'm mellow now, which is good in some ways, but people are either over-medicated or under-medicated in this here world, Bill. I'm glad you're not one, young man.
Yeah. Well,
all right.
Not now, but who knows?
Who knows? Hey, it could happen, and these days, it's a good thing when it does. You know what I'm saying? And we're talking about with it.
I'm sorry.
I don't know. I fight the Unholy Trinity on this show an awful lot, besides talking about baseball and what have you. And the Unholy Trinity, as I see it, is big business, government, and organized religion combining to do us in on one level or another, rob us of our freedoms, take our hard-earned money, and not treat us for anything but a king's ransom if we just so happen to get sick when we're old, which we're likely to do, dear Alice. Can you, we're just talking off the cuff, could you give me your impression of that? What particularly irks you about becoming a middle-aged gentleman and things being different than you thought they'd be back when Ozzy was doing Harriet?
Oh yeah, I'm hearing you, Zig, and I think the best observation I could offer up on that, I am a student of history, even though I lived through the 60s. I was too young to know most of it firsthand. I was born at the very tail end of the 50s, but probably the most penetrating observation on that I ever ran across was in a book about the 1968 presidential campaign and all that that year meant to the country in terms of us being torn apart. And one commentator said, if we ever reach the point in this country when the George Wallace voters and the Bobby Kennedy voters realize they've got a heck of a lot more in common than they have dividing them, that's when the powers that be need to start worrying. Would you agree?
Well, that means that each party is the same as the other, and that scares the hell out of me, quite frankly.
Yeah.
We're talking about people like Clinton becoming before our very eyes starting out as a Democrat, and he's now a Republican. We talk about a man named Obama who ran on things that with Obama, the thing that gets me is the food thing, the Monsanto.
Yeah.
Coming with them, signing off on Monsanto. This is Obama, and this is the food we're eating. And what do you eat? You know what I'm saying? And to do us out that way, in that manner, it's so highly disappointing. I don't worry so much about me because I've lived my life. I'm an older guy. I'm going to die one way or the other in short order, as they'd like it to be, I'm sure, because that's what keeps it all going. And but I worry about my kid, my potential grandkids, and all that. Fuck, it's not the world. No generation didn't leave it a better world before ours. Everything, all the good that was passed on by the hardworking people that went to war in World War II and all that stuff for presumably the right reasons. I like to think most people think that at this point. But there's some that are old school. Yeah. How do you see things going in the next election? How do you see things going for the country?
Oh, dang! That's a tough one. I mean, I think the way the demographics are going, it's going to be Democrats taking the White House again. But the Republicans have managed to do enough for gerrymandering in congressional districts that the odds are pretty good they hold on to the control of Congress. And this crazy stalemate we've got where the federal government can hardly get anything accomplished. That's my big fear the next few years is we're just going to be stuck in this crazy rut that where we can't move. It's like a car stuck in the mud, and every time somebody tries to rev the engine, you just get stuck deeper and deeper. Yeah,
that's a very good analogy. We're just spinning the wheels, as they say. Let's get back to baseball talk, which is about the only thing that keeps my blood pressure down. The rest of it goes sky high, so that means I could pop at any minute. And if I do, you'll know which buttons to push, I'm sure. And if not, hey, what can I tell you? You started being a baseball fan, Gil's managing of the Mets. You mentioned 1969, the year of the Amazins. They came from the 62 Mets to the 69 Mets before my very eyes, and it still amazes me that they did it that quickly. And as Leonard Coppett, the late Leonard Coppett, esteemed sports writer, Hall of Famer, told me in an interview, most of it, if not, a great deal of it, let's put it that way, there was Whitey Herzog scouting, there was the great groundwork that George Weiss goes unappreciated for, that he laid the groundwork with early on. But it was Gil's believing in that 68 team, seeing what they were with that pitching staff and how what it took to motivate them to be champs in 69 was really what makes Gil a Hall of Famer in my eyes. His managing ability those 2 years, and then to get it done in 69, unbelievable. And to do it in the World Series against Baltimore, which makes it even nicer because Frank Robinson said, who's Rod Gaspar? Who the hell is Rod Gaspar?
Yep.
Number, I'll do it because I don't even remember what the Shea Stadium announcer sounds like. So I'll do it as the voice of the Yankees. So it has to be, I'll do it like, now batting number 17, Rod Gaspar, number 17.
That is spot on, Bob Shepard. I congratulate you, sir.
Well, it's the only talent I have, except I could read my phone with one hand, and it's one of these crazy phones that's smarter than me, and that's all I need in life. Those are the only two talents. To a little Bob Shepard, I get on the bus. I don't have to pay, sir. I'm doing the voice. Get to the back, sir. Just that. Never mind. Get to the back. Thank you, sir. The Yankees, thank you. The Mets would if they had the voice of Bob Shepard. I'm a little strange these days. They've legalized now for medical patients. They did it about 10 years ago, but I never thought that I'd run out of a dealer enough to get legal and get a card. And I did this past month, getting a card that I could now smoke marijuana legally after 35 years of being a wake and baker and not giving a damn whether or not I was legal or not. I'm finally legal. What difference? It's an amazing change in the way things have gone from the 60s till now, and people are waking up to the fact that marijuana is an herb. It is not a drug. It is a medicine for people who need it. They asked me some specific questions, whether or not I would qualify for this. One of them was, do you have the $35? I said, yes. He says, you qualify. Now, I'm going to ask you another question. How quickly could you put it on my hand and walk away from the table? No, they do ask you questions that make you think. You fill out a form. Have you suffered from anxiety? Marijuana helps with that. Do you suffer from a lack of appetite from other drugs you might be taking? Check this, check that, check this, check that. I don't happen to suffer, but I do suffer from what you might consider to be anxiety because we're in a world that makes us all anxious. How could one not be anxious?
Exactly.
So, and it helps me sleep. And what's $35 to be legal? And to have a place where I can buy it legally. We have the largest dispensary, medical dispensary for marijuana in the world. It's called Harborside. It's within walking distance from where I park my RV, which is where I park my RV. So there you go. It's been nice on that level. On another level, it isn't decriminalized quite yet, and it isn't legal for everybody to just light up and take a toke. What in the hell? All right?
A little way north, because it is in Washington State now, and we just passed that for Oregon, but it doesn't take effect next summer. But it's
okay. Why do they make you wait? What is it? Do you suppose he'll really need the munchies by then? Well, let's make him wait just a little longer. He's 107. He's dying. Pass the fucking thing and put it in effect. But never mind. I mean, I fight everything there is to fight. But so let me go through the agenda of why it should be legal for those of you who think this is just some old hippie talking. No. If they legalize it, they wouldn't have to cut down trees to build a house. So you could build it with hemp, which is stronger than wood. All right? If they legalize it, you can make clothing out of hemp, and it can be every bit as good as cotton, except there's no boll weevil. You know what boll weevil causes them to spray for pesticides. A lot of money in that. So people lobby against it. A lot of money in cotton. People a lot of money in timber. People lobby against it. If they only legalized it, people could be a little happier and they could take natural medication for what they do instead of the medication that does make you and you have to go through life as a zombie or sit in the basement somewhere just so you don't take a life at some church. Well, go for it, young man. Not you, of course. I say, anybody who wants to go to church and take a life, you have my permission. Now, this may not be legal for me to give permission, but what in the fuck, Go for it. Only kidding, folks. If you're really on the edge, ask for help. Ask your minister. Better still, you're feeling a little bad, go sit on some lap of a cleric wearing a dress. He'll make you feel better for a few moments. I don't know. That's probably what screwed you up in the first place. You wouldn't need the medication. Okay. Thanks for helping me rant tonight, Bill. Talk about that first year of being a Met fan, because I want to know.
Well, there I was, this little 10-year-old kid following baseball really seriously for the first time, and I kind of had the sense that this team had been really lousy for its whole history, and all of a sudden it was really good, and I fell in love with Tom Seaver, and Tom Seaver is still probably my favorite pitcher of all time, but listening to the broadcasts, reading about it in the paper, everybody's talking about the leadership of this manager, Gil Hodges, and that. But
you didn't even grow up in New York, so it must have been very difficult for you to establish a fanship at age 10. You were in Oregon, am I correct?
Yep, Portland, Oregon was where I grew up. I'm now living in Newport on the coast, but I don't know. It just seemed like I remember in my school everybody was talking about the Mets, and that was the good old days when baseball and the World Series was played in the sunshine like it's supposed to be. And I remember us sitting in the auditorium all in front of a big black and white TV, and when that last out came, the principal, who was pretty much of an old stuffed shirt guy, he started cheering, and we all started cheering, and we understood that, in our young little lifetimes, we had witnessed two miracles that summer. First, man walked on the moon, and then the Mets were champions of the world.
An unbelievable time. I don't know which is more miraculous. That studio production for the Man on the Moon must have cost thousands at that time.
They really tuned it up pretty good in there. But
they might have, for all I know. They've fucked with us on so many different levels. Things that I directly know about, like body counts coming home from Vietnam. How many of those were counted in the tallies that we were getting at the time? And it doesn't, it's not just that. It goes back to drawing us into World War II, which was for a good reason, but you had to make that whole Pearl Harbor happen, and then that got out of hand, and we've just been lied to. And listen, we were founded as an imperialistic bunch of folks. The Native Americans took a bath for that $23 they sold New York for, Manhattan for. $23 worth of trinkets and genocide for the rest of them, and everything was going forward to being this imperialistic bunch of mothers to go to everywhere in the world and try to get anything. Just bring a Hershey bar. You start with that, all right? Love you long time, $5. And the rest goes with it. First your money, then your clothes, up your nose with the rubber hose, and we'll take your oil, and we'll take everything you got, and your rubber before that, and your spices before that, and live with it. And if you like it, hey, what can I tell you? If you don't like it, lump it. And you wonder why there's problems. You wonder why we're hated. You wonder why there's terrorism. You know, we piss on their Quran when we, it just, I don't know what this world is coming to. I can identify. I'm smart enough to identify it, but I'm not smart enough to really give you any way of solving it, other than they should have a Ziggy Day once a year. Everybody did, like in World War II around Christmas when they did that, they stopped war. It was 12 days. I don't know if you know anything about that. Literally, the Germans and the Americans, or Germans and the Russians, whatever it was, they just had a truce for like 12 days.
Oh, yeah, actually. Yep. The Christmas truce.
The Christmas truce, right.
If soldiers would treat every day like Christmas and say, no, we're not going to fight today. Sorry.
That's right.
That's it. World.
Yeah, everybody, like, well, if you had a wolf, everybody goes home. And I, as an older fellow, like in the 60s with Pete, listening to people like Bob Seger and Phil Oakes,
yep,
and Woody Guthrie, and reading books like Johnny Got His Gun and all that stuff. I had a good, healthy disrespect for all of that shit. And it was going to be somebody else's grandmother that worried. And that was selfish on one level, but I didn't have an issue, just like Ali didn't have an issue. His issue was with Whitey in Kentucky. It wasn't with some Vietnamese guy. So life goes on. So you're a little kid and you're in Oregon and you're cheering like a mother. And to the leader of the school now, I must commend the Oregon School District for having someone who is a human being in there. We had to listen to games through transistor radios in our sleeves with a little earplug when we were kids, and hide it. Those New York City, we couldn't have any fun. They had fun police that walked the halls, and or just like if there was a big occasion. I played hooky from high school in 1964. I had to play hooky to go out with my friends to see the first game in Chase Stadium. So, that was pretty cool. My friend Mert, who's been on this show many times, talking about the old days of being a Met fan, reminded me that it wasn't just me and Mert and a few others. There were like 18 Heightsmen, Jackson Heights kids, playing hooky from Newtown High School, that sat in the right field stands against the Pirates. Joe Christopher was in right field for the Pirates. That was
Casey Stengel was asleep in the dugout, right?
Absolutely. And, it's kind of funny. Gil's teammate was one of Stengel's harshest critics, Jackie Robinson, and Howie Cosell would get on the radio together, pregame shows, this, that, and the other thing, and lambast that old bastard. He was asleep. He'd be up till 3 a.m. drinking at the bar, just telling stories, entertaining. He was a great ambassador to baseball. But, and I was one of them. I hated, as a kid, I was 16 years old, and my New York Giants had left, and I had been without National League Baseball. I had to follow the Giants in San Francisco long distance. It was way before I moved out here. Yeah. And I had no team, really. And Willie would come back every now and again, this, that, and the other thing, but it wasn't the same. And so I hated losing. And 62 was horrible, but 63 was even more frustrating. But by 69, that quickly, they were there. And ironically, you're talking the last game of the 69 series now, right? When your teacher was up there with the black and white TV?
Yep.
Well, for me, I was in a special school, not for me, for my wonderful friend Diana Herringer, who convinced me to stay in California. I was still in the Air Force when I met her, and she was the roommate of every woman I ever dated for 3 years.
Wow.
I dated all the women at Davis. She was a student at Davis, and I dated every one of her roommates for 3 years. It was not just dated. I was platonically friendly with a lot of them. I mean, I was like a brother to those people. She convinced me to stay out in California. She not convinced me, but a boyfriend of hers worked for a company that I went to work for and just stayed out. Anyway, she was teaching a special education class. I went up to Jackson, California, watched it not on a black and white, on a color television set, and she was playing the piano in the background for kids that were wonderful and never cried and smiled all the time and learned and didn't bitch at each other. It was a perfect. It was wonderful. She was and she was great with the kids, and I got to watch that game. And for somebody who saw it develop, it was unreal. We were watching a very, very, very good Baltimore team. We're not playing Houston with Roman Mahias. We're playing the Baltimore Orioles, who had Frank and Brooks and a lot of ball players that were terrific. Andy Etcheverry and ironically, Davy Johnson was the second baseman, and Ballinger and those guys. Anyway, so it was thrilling for you as a kid. I'm delighted that we got to share that experience of Jerry Kuzman jumping in Jerry Grody's arms. Jerry Grody. Is he a favorite of yours?
Is he what?
Was he a favorite of yours?
Oh, yeah. I mean, a great catcher. And, I mean, didn't Johnny Bench himself say that if he and Grody were on the same team, Bench would have been a third baseman?
And that was true. Jerry Grody was just terrific. And I've heard you write about that, or I've read your writing about that. And absolutely, he was terrific. And Eric Chapman, a charter member of my new page that I founded on Facebook, called Zig's New York Mets. So if you're a Met fan out there, you might check it out. I do Mets 24/7, past, present, and future Mets. So I got a lot of memories. I talk about what's coming up in the farm system. I talk about what's going on. What do you think's going on with shortstop with the Mets?
I don't know. They seem, I mean, it's hard to read the tea leaves, to be honest, for me. I mean,
okay.
Where they want to go, whether they want to go into the future, whether they're willing to shell out, I don't know. This ownership does not seem willing to lay out the big bucks for the free agents. So I'm scratching my head, and I got to admit I haven't put as much energy into following the current team as I usually do, because I've been kind of on a single-minded obsession this summer, as you well know, sir.
Oh, absolutely. And let me tell you, you are one dedicated human being. Now, you've gotten to meet, if not in person on the Facebook, you've gotten to meet Gil's son, Gil Hodges Jr. What's he like? What does he do in life? He looks you posted some pictures. He looks exactly like his father. I mean, wow. It's scarily they look alike. Did he play ball? I remember Joan Hodges, when the Mets were doing well, she had orange hair like the Mets. Literally. Pardon me?
I'm sorry?
I didn't hear what you said.
Yeah, she still does have that orange hair, as a matter of fact. But you were asking about Gil Jr.?
Yes. Oh, sorry.
Okay, I just wanted to share a great story. Not only have we emailed back and forth a lot, we have had a couple of phone conversations, and what a warm, wonderful, friendly human being. Yes, he did play ball himself, minor league ball, but we were talking about that amazing squad at 69. And this is probably the favorite story that Gil Jr. shared with me. If I could share it with the audience, if you don't mind, sir.
Mind, I'd be delighted. Please.
Okay. You talked a little bit about how formidable that Baltimore team was. And so imagine it's right before the series is going to start. Gil Jr. is in his dad's office. He's looking over the stat sheets that the Mets publicists have put out. And, look at that team on paper. My God, Boop Powell, Frank Robinson, Brooks Robinson, Mark Belanger, Jim Palmer, Mike Cuellar, and on and on. And Gil Jr. looks across the desk at his dad and says, "Can I ask you something? Why are you even on the same field with those guys?" And so his father gets up, closes the office door so they have privacy, and he points to the clubhouse and says, "I've got 25 guys out there who believe they can win it, and that's what matters."
Wow.
Isn't that a great story?
Absolutely great. And it goes with what I was saying before, that he had them believing in themselves. And these were young guys. We're talking Nolan Ryan is 20, 21 years old. Seaver's 22, 23. And they're living through some weird times. Let me tell you, Tug McGraw and 2 or 3 others, I don't know if it was Wayne Garrett or... and boy, how Garrett and Charles filled third base. They didn't have a third baseman until those guys came along. But they had to go out and do summer camp in the Marines. Guys like Tony Kubek did it, but there were 2 or 3 Mets that had to do that. So the bench became incredibly important. Guys like Bobby File, Al Weiss, and then come back, and you're developing different muscles doing all that bullshit for the Marines and what have you. And now you have to come back after being away for 2 years. It was just a miraculous year to be a fan, and we were blessed. And you were blessed at different stages of development. I was a jaded mother by then. I was out in California. I had lost my team when I was 10 or 11. I was taken away involuntarily. I joined only to not have to be a grunt, and that could have happened anyway. So all my mind was had been on staying out of the service. I was newly out of the Air Force. I was gung-ho to make a living and what have you, and working hard to do that in the traditional manner, because I was a pleaser of on one sort or another, and I had to get it done the traditional way until I realized this is craziness after about 7 or 8 years. But my point was, you were just a kid and I was different. So we had different stages of development.
Yep.
Just like I was your age when in 1954, your age when my team won in 1954, I always thought to myself, New York Giants, they were world champions with Willie and the catch and all of that. And even before that, the homer hit around the world. My fandom was secure. This punched your ticket as a little kid. Everything after that, it punched both of our tickets respectively, because everything after that, we had the ultimate in thrill. Our teams made it. I lived in a city where it was our birthright, we thought, to have the World Series played there. It was either the Yankees, Giants, Dodgers for all the years that I was growing up. It was unbelievable. So, and you in the same way, because soon after that you had 73, which is my favorite team, and then 86, and you had no idea there'd be this much of a drought after a while. So, yeah, painful, right? You lived through the Beauclair years.
Yep.
You lived through all of them. And we're living through them to a certain extent now, because, as you say, the Wilpons, I call them the Wilponskis, because they were heavily involved in that thing. They damn near lost the team. That they didn't lose the team, let alone end up in jail, is one of those miraculous. I'm still waiting for that other shoe to drop. It's been horrible. And they brought in the fences a little bit this year. Granderson should be back, as I drift from subject to subject. I don't like to think about the ownership because it brings me down. I really think that the team is on the cusp. I think the pitching is there, and I think that getting a shortstop, or maybe, just maybe, Flores can do the job. I mean, they won in 86 with Rafi Santana, who I got to meet, and that was pretty cool, because I'm a Rafi, too, on one level or another. And he was above average. Giants won with Pagan. He was nearly above average. And Flores has a little pop, so I don't know. We'll see. I don't get paid the big bucks to do it, but Alderson does, and he's on a very tight budget, if not a tight leash. And I know Wilpon's kid has the intelligence of a brick wall. I'm standing looking over at the lagoon. He is not the smartest kid on the block, and he's going to take over eventually if they get out of this, and that scares me. And I played my option out in my head many, many times over the years, but I always stay as a Mets fan. There you go.
Keep the faith.
You got to keep the baby faith. Or am I saying that right?
Yep.
Okay. Listen, you're a pleasure to talk to. I sincerely wish Gil gets in, and I'll just say I wish it in spades now, because I know how much it meant to you. And for the first time, I'm a believer, because the rules have been changed. They're now taking into consideration the managerial career. And if you just listen to that story that we heard, ladies and gentlemen, you'll realize Gil motivated that team to win. They, man for man, I mean, Brooks against Wayne Garrett, shortstop, Belanger. We had a nice shortstop in Harrelson. But, we had Boswell at second. Wasn't the hitter that Davy Johnson was. We had Boog Powell, and got to tell you, Cranepool was still getting innings at first, which I could never understand.
Yeah.
Because we had Milner. But they won anyway, and it's a great memory, and I enjoyed sharing it with you. I'll call for one final time. I'll end the segment and implore you, Bill Hall, as I implore my audience in the end of every segment to keep your dreams wet and your humor dry, to keep your kids out of military recruiting stations. Bad. Very bad. Changes the family. Always for the bad, never for the good. Believe me. And stay off the laps. Keep your kids off the laps of clerics wearing dresses. I cover that all the time. People forget. It always gets in the paper. You know, you say, well, you know, I didn't know. You didn't know? You brought your kid over there. Now you're suing us? People should know. It's a little boys club, among other things. I mean, they sell trinkets. But, and they have to manage a lot of property they don't pay taxes on. Yeah. So, you know, they're busy people. And you got to dress right, all right, you know? But basically, it's been in all the papers. If you take your child over there, I mean, if you take your child to catechism, you need a better child care center. I'm just telling you, don't leave your kids. And I'm including a lot of the good ones are ruined. There's a lot of priests doing good work, and they're ruined by the hundreds of thousands. Well, if not hundreds of thousands, thousands that have been accused. And if not convicted, transferred. Had to go through the humiliation of being transferred to another parish without anybody knowing up there. So, I won't belabor that one any longer than I will any of the others. But, Bill, am I an embarrassment or am I a silly old man? What do you say, Bill? Am I ready for the old card? Am I comfortably zoned quite enough?
I think you are comfortably zoned, Zig. You are.
Did you have fun on the show?
Oh, it's been a heck of a fun ride.
All right, and will you consider coming back and talking to us about baseball from time to time? And I will congratulate you in advance for Gil's making it. And I will ask you this question. There are 9 other candidates. I have my personal favorite for if it can't be Gil, I have 2 others that it could be. Who do you think it should be if not Gil or in addition to Gil?
Oh, I could make a case for just about any of them. And by the way, yeah, if you want me back at some point, it would be fun to get on this bus one more time. And
that's good.
Of all the group, you know, I would really love to see Minnie Minoso make it. I mean,
Me too. He was one of mine. Absolutely. He's from Cuba.
Yep. He had a solid career, and he has been a wonderful ambassador for the game. The man's 88 years old, and wouldn't it be nice if he could actually be there to see it happen? So, yeah, Minnie's my number one guy after Gil. And
played in 5 different decades, albeit he was 56, and it was kind of a dog and pony show. Not too bad. Kept himself in shape, and never heard anything negative about Minnie Minoso in all those years, and was a winner. And just reminds me of the Bill Vecchias, and they were great. Then I'll pick my favorite, and then you pick your second favorite. My favorite, in addition to Minnie Minoso, and probably first, was Jim Kaat. I think Jim Kaat deserves to be in the Hall of Fame, for damn sure.
I agree. I mean, more wins than anybody else who's not in there. Amazingly durable and a heck of a decent guy from what everybody says. I would vote for him. I'd also vote for his Minnesota teammate, Tony Oliva. I mean, it's a real shame they didn't have arthroscopic surgery back then. The man won 3 batting titles, and, you know, he was on his way to putting up some amazing career numbers when his career got cut short.
But that is ifs and buts. Cagliera, you can say the same thing. If you want to, I mean, I don't know if he had that many good years. I can't think of anybody else that's been hurt. Yes, but I don't consider him to be a Hall of Famer because of the same very reason, because he didn't have longevity, or because he was hurt, and he also came back after the eye injury, and I swear I remember seeing that on television, Gil McDougall hitting him. I was a big Gil McDougall fan. Gil McDougall held over the Giants in the 51 World Series.
Yeah.
And he, not Mantle, was Rookie of the Year. And the Yankees won in the 50s with him as their regular shortstop 1 year, as their regular third baseman, and as their regular second baseman. So Gilly was terrific. And I'm coughing away. I'm ending the show. I'm out of here. I can't get off. You're so interesting to talk to, and I'm sorry I babbled so much. But I loved listening to you, and I really hope Gil makes it, and I love the Gil Hodges Jr. story. And did you get to communicate with Joan at all?
I have not. I'm hoping that after the fact I'll get that opportunity, but no, it's been the 4 kids primarily.
All right. And you had campaigns. You had people sign petitions. I signed the petition. How many people finally signed that petition? And how could they be ignored is what I mean, between you and Tony and Scott Russell, you make great cases that he should be in. Scott makes a case that he should be in just on his playing career. What say you about that?
Oh, I agree, but I think the managing record puts it over the top. I mean, the man retired number 10 all time in home runs. The fielding, you name it. I mean, he had the credentials as a player. I really believe that. But you add in the managing, which the Veterans Committee could do, it should be no question.
It should be at this point, absolutely no question. I agree with you.
Something like 3,300 people signed it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, when we started out, we were talking about, maybe, if this thing kicks off and gets a little traction, maybe we can get 500 people to sign it. 3,300.
Wow.
30 former big league players, broadcasters, beat writers, historians, and like I said, I mean, it's wonderful to have all those people who know the game so well, but the fans, just the hundreds of fans, guys like you who grew up watching him play, slightly younger ones like me watching him managing. And I was so thrilled. I don't know if you saw it on the Facebook page, I think just yesterday, 17-year-old kid wrote this wonderful paper about why Gil belongs in the Hall of Fame. I mean, even the ones who weren't born when he left us, they get it. I'm just hoping and praying that the committee gets it too.
Well, I'm short of praying, but I am hoping real hard, and you have my best wishes. And I'm happy to know you on Facebook. You're what's known as a baseball maven. Where's your passion going to go after this? Where is it other than baseball? I know you got your Coast Guard thing is closing in your town. Am I correct?
The air station, the boat station isn't, but we're threatened with the loss of our air station. Oh, I do a lot of work as a county commissioner on behalf of the homeless, trying to get better health care to low-income folks in our community. So that's where a lot of it goes. I've actually started writing novels on the side, though, and my first novel comes out next year about a former Oregon governor. It's a what-if novel, imagining him becoming president of the United States, of all things. So I'm finding that to be a heck of a lot of fun, so I'll probably keep trying to write. And I don't know, I'll just go where my passions take me.
Well, you keep it going, and I hope you'll keep in touch, and we'll talk about the book, especially when it comes out. We'll do another show, and we'll talk about your writing process because I'm interested in that. And thanks for being my Facebook friend, and thanks for being here. And you have a great one, and I'm just going to say keep on keeping on. Have fun, everybody. See you, Bill. Thanks again.
Okay.